It's 19:59 and you're heading to Los Angeles International Airport to catch a flight to Denver. The weather is great and you're looking forward to the trip that you booked. The prop era is phasing out, with airlines updating their fleet to the new jet airplanes that are the new symbol of air travel. The world's first commercial flight was 7 years ago, but only 1 year ago commercial jet travel was introduced in the United States by Pan Am with the 707. You have never flown on a jet before, and because of that, you look forward to do so. A spike of luck got in your way, as you are about to catch the first commercial flight on a new type of airplane that United just introduced, the Boeing 720. United Airlines, just like Pan Am, also jumped to their jet airplanes a year ago with the DC-8. But you're a big fan of Boeing, and catching such a trip is a thrill. You arrive at the airport, past the check-in, and there it is. Brand new and shiny, good-looking airplane. Improved short range, better takeoff and landing performance, and the new jet engines. Living history. Hello ladies and gentlemen, hope everybody's fine and feeling good. Welcome to this video dedicated to the Boeing 720, an airplane which I didn't really know about until I found this Freeware model in the Explain forums and decided to try it out. And it got me so curious that I decided to search more about it. And I really liked this model, and I've been talking about this model on the past few streams already. So here comes finally the video that I promised. So what are we going to do today? This is going to be somewhat of an historical video and flight. This is going to be flight United 728 or 728 as you might like. This is a call sign which I found from Airline Timetables website from 1961 of this exact flight. It might be not the exact flight that we are doing, because we're actually reproducing the first commercial United flight with the Boeing 720, which they introduced in 1960. But I'm gonna leave that for the cruise part, where I will speak a little bit about the history of the aircraft, what are the differences from the 707, which is his biggest brother, and some interesting facts overall, because it was a different time. So today, for this flight, we're doing just one leg, starting in Los Angeles and finishing in Denver, and then we'll let the aircraft continue from Denver to Chicago. Instead of doing the briefing later, I want to talk a little bit now about the flight. So because we're just going to use ADFs and VORs, our flight has to be planned in according to VORs and NDBs. And for that, we need to pay attention to what charts and what departure types are we going to use. So in SimBrief, for instance, we cannot accept any of the flight plans that they suggested. So for that, I used SkyVector, and I planned the route according to the high-level airways with different VORs until Denver, both using a conventional departure out of Los Angeles and a conventional arrival into Denver, where we will have to give ourselves a little vector. I'm not online today, just to make recording a little bit easier, but I do plan to take this airplane on the stream and of course on VADSIM. That's where it's going to be fun. Today's flight gives us a payload of 11.1 tons, and we're going to take on board 18 tons of fuel, making a takeoff weight of around 79.3 tons. Our cruising level is to be flight level 370, and we're going to be using runway 25 right out of Los Angeles. Right now, we are on position 73 in Terminal 3, so our taxi is going to be pretty simple, out of the ramp via Charlie 7 and then Bravo to Bravo 1 holding point, runway 25 right. Our departure is going to be a conventional departure. It's going to be SEBI 3 departure for runway 25 left and 25 right. And the description says we're going to climb on heading 251 degrees, and then at the Santa Monica VOR, when we cross the radial 160, we turn left at heading 221, and we have to cross that radial below 3000. After that, we proceed direct to the Seal Beach VOR, frequency 115.7, which we have to cross above 14,000 feet. From Seal Beach, we take a course of 022 to waypoint SEBI, crossing it above 16,000 feet, and which is located at 23 miles out of Seal Beach. And from that point, we proceed direct to Daggett VOR, 113.2 on the course of 034 degrees or radial 214. From there, we proceed as we have on our flight plan that I showed in the beginning. The weather on the departure airport looks to be good. The wind right now is 110 degrees at 5 knots, good visibility, few clouds, temperature of 22. As for the arrival in Denver, right now we have a good weather as well, but now we're going to go straight to the airplane, prepare the cockpits, prepare our navigation aids, calculate our takeoff speeds, takeoff power, and get going. So enjoy this retro flight on the Boeing 720 with flight United 728. Welcome to the cockpit of the 720. We do have an engineer's panel on this airplane, and probably you're just like me, a little bit scared of it, but trust me, it is not that much complicated. This airplane comes with a dedicated checklist, which is very good, and I advise you to check it out, especially if you never flew this aircraft. Doing that checklist will make sure that you won't forget anything that's required to complete your flight successfully. I will be using the checklist after I finish all my flows to make sure that I didn't forget anything. First thing you gotta do is call X-Plane ground services. And for that you can use either the shortcut to do it or use the menu. After connecting the ground services and the jetway in our case, we have a little menu that can be accessed from the flight engineer's table by clicking on it or by clicking in the center of the cockpit. On that panel, we have a couple of important informations, some customization settings. We can customize from VOR and ADF only, INS or FMS. We can customize it to have auto throttle and auto brake. And we can control the cabin lights. We're going to use only VOR and ADF. We're not going to have any auto throttle and no auto brake. I found this quite interesting because it's a different feeling of flying a fairly big jet. As for the cabin lights, we'll just leave it on dim and the cob lights to on. And I have already the front door open. Finally, we do have more important information right here, which is the center of gravity. So to make sure that we are actually within the CG limits and the flight can be accomplished safely, we can see here as well our gross weight, which is a lot easier than going through the X-Plane menu. But if you do load the plane through the X-Plane menu, which you do have to do, it's already fine if you took the numbers from there. And finally, we have our landing reference speed for flaps 30 and for flaps 50. I'm going to close this panel right now, and I will start the flow from the engineer's deck. First of all, I'm going to start the battery. After starting the battery, I'm going to connect ground power. You can make sure that it is connected. Now, as you can see, we've got two lights saying that it is connected, and those lights switch on as soon as you have external power available. From this point on, we need to open these four covers and close the bus ties. By closing the bus ties, we allow electricity to flow to the system, and so we can power up some of the systems of this aircraft without having the engine started. First things first, I'm going to switch on the navigation lights and the logo light. So from this moment, I pull on the galley power, I pull on the avionics power. Coming down, we have the fuel system panel, and because I already have all the fuel on board, just as I want, I'm going to switch on the boost pumps, and I'm going to switch on the cross-feed valves and the valves from the reserve tank. Because if you can see, right now we do have fuel in our reserve tank. And if we do not switch the valve from the reserve tank, the fuel is not going to be used. Air conditioning units to on, and I'm going to already switch all the packs on. Finally, more important, or very important should I say, we should connect the auxiliary hydraulic pumps and then switch the interconnect valve to brake. I'm going to go through the checklist now to make sure that everything that I did is correct and I'm not missing any important steps. And from that point on, I can start preparing the airplane with the navigation, setting up the frequencies, courses, and getting ready for pushback. The checklist is complete. Now I will only set the frequencies for the departure. I'm going to prepare Seal Beach VOR on nav1, frequency 115.7. And I'm going to leave Santa Monica, frequency 110, 0.6, correction 0.8, to nav2. This way we can monitor for the radial 160 so that we know when do we have to start the turn. We've prepared the airplane for flight. I've switched on the fuel valves on the flight engineer's panel, and I switched on the beacon light to on. The jetway is out, and all the ground services, apart from X-planes, are away. We do require the X-plane's ground services for one simple reason. This airplane does not have an APU, and so we have to start the engines with an external air cart. And normally the procedure is something like starting 2 engines on the gate, then disconnecting the ground services, starting the pushback, and then starting the other 2 engines from crossbleed. So first of all, as we're all ready for pushback, let's do the before starting engines checklist. Flight instruments, switches and bugs are set. The QNH is set to 9995. Bleed air switches are on, and oxygen pressure was checked. Before starting engines checklist is complete, and just prior to starting checklist, doors are closed, seatbelt sign and no smoking is on, beacon light is on, nav lights are on. Just prior to starting checklist complete. Now we're going to start engines number 3 and number 4. For that, I've already uncovered all the engine start control guards and the ground start select switch. So we click on it, it goes to low pressure, and then we're going to hold the ground start for engine number 3. At this moment we monitor N2, which is rising, and now we have a normal jet engine start. So we want it to be above 20%. And above 20% we introduce fuel. We do have a spool up. I'm going to disable parking brake, and we're going to start our pushback. Now that we are pushing back, let's start the other 2 engines, starting number 2. Hand signal is received. Before next checklist. Ground start select is off. Engine 2 and engine 3 hydraulic pumps are on. External power is off. Essential power is checked. Ground air connection is off. Galley power is on. Ground services are clean. Electrical panel is checked. Fuel panel is set. Fuel heat is not required. Air conditioning units are on. Temperature controls are on auto on 24. Pitot heat comes to on, and runway turn off lights on. I've reached the runway holding point, Bravo 1, so let's stop here. Apply the parking brake. For takeoff checklist. Fuel panel set. Fuel heat is not required. Landing lights. Let's do the wing lights because we do not have strobes. And the before takeoff checklist is complete. Let's go. That was a good lineup. Cabin crew is ready. So let's pull it up to 60. It is stable and setting EPR 2.56. Release the brakes. Take off. Let's maintain the center line. Power set. Airspeed is alive. B1. Oh, it wants to rotate. Let's go. Rotate. Nice and easy. Positive rate. Gear up. We don't have flight director right now, so we're gonna just point it to 15 degrees approximately and let it accelerate to V2 speed, which is 141. There is radial 160, left heading 221. Lower the nose a little bit, flaps 10. Speed is checked, flaps 10. Do a little bit of power reduction, watch your EGT. And from this point onwards, we can proceed direct to Seal Beach VR. Here we have 3 miles. Let's start the turn. Because it's an outbound course, we have 022, we add 45, so that will be 67. So we fly roughly a heading of 67 to intercept the outbound. We have now catched Daggett VR and we are proceeding direct. We have 70 miles until unbound and our course is 034. Perfect, just as per chart. The Boeing 720 was initially known as the Model 707-020, a smaller version of the 707. Its fuselage was shortened by 2.54 meters or 8.33 feet. The intent of the plane was to serve short and medium range flights. It was modified to lower takeoff and landing speeds, allowing operation on smaller runways. Even though the biggest difference that stands out in the Boeing 720 is the shortened fuselage, it in fact has also a modified wing from the 707, which would decrease the drag and increase its speed. Its low manufacturing costs allowed profit for Boeing company, even though only 154 units were built. This airplane, as all 707s, didn't have an APU, so the start of the engines had to be made with the help of the ground crew and ground equipment. Initially, the airplane was fitted with 4 Pratt & Whitney GT3C turbojet engines, but on later improved versions, those were changed to the GT3D turbofan. Those improved variants were now called Boeing 720Bs. Both versions are available in X-Plane, as the developer kindly made both variants, so leave a comment with suggestion of an airline and flight to make for a future livestream. The first Boeing 720 operator was United Airlines, and it was actually the airline itself that changed the name number to 720 instead of 707-020. Its first commercial flight was the exact one we are doing today, a flight from Los Angeles to Denver and then continuing to Chicago. Following up, American Airlines also started flying the 720. At the end, 56 different operators used this airplane across all continents. In 1962, a world record was set on a flight from London to Karachi with the first 720 of Pakistan International Airlines. It achieved an average speed of 938 km per hour, or 583 miles per hour on a commercial route. Apart from the normal commercial flying, the 720 was flown as an engine test bench, and it was the model that was famously used on a crash test executed by the FAA and NASA, where the airplane was remotely flown and then crashed to provide information on airplane G accelerations on impact and testing of fire retardant fuel. The last operating Boeing 720 was used until 2010 by Pratt & Whitney Canada as an engine test bench and was replaced by a 747 SP. This airplane, registration Charlie/Foxtrot Echo Tango Bravo, was then flown in 2012 to Trenton, Ontario, where it was put on display at the National Air Force Museum of Canada. I'm glad airplanes like these are being modeled for the simulators, so that we, aviation enthusiasts, can have a glimpse of what it was like to be over the control of a machine like this. I must say special thanks to the developer of this model that provided it to the community for free. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. We are 52 miles from Red Table VOR, flight level 370, fighting a little bit with the X-plane pressure change system. I hope they fix this eventually, but so far the flight has been going great. I'm calling you here because I want to brief you a little bit about how are we going to do the approach, because I consider it's important. So first of all, in Denver right now the weather is showing as variable with 4 knots, good visibility, few clouds at 9,000 and the temperature is 31, so it's pretty hot. QNH is 3026. Our approach is going to be as well a conventional one. It's called Powder 1 Arrival, and it starts from Red Table. And basically we go very simply from Red Table, we go on a course of 093 for 20 miles, and then we turn left on course 045 direct to Denver VOR. When overflying Denver VOR, we maintain the heading, and then I will turn to a heading of approximately 080, basically, to join a downwind for runway 26. And then when we're going to cross radial 036 from Falcon VOR 116.3, we're going to turn right, inbound, to catch the ILS course for runway 26. Our minimums are going to be 200 feet. This airplane actually has a radio altimeter, so we can set this already to 200 feet for our minimums for the runway. And I plan to vacate at Romeo 6 or Romeo 7, and then we'll just taxi to any stand on the terminal. Then the landing, we're going to land at flaps 30, because the runway is very long. I don't see any point of landing at flaps 50, and our reference speed is going to be somewhere around 129. So we're looking at the landing speed, because this is the reference speed. The app is going to be 134. We're getting a little bit of turbulence, so let's switch on the seatbelt signs, because we are going to be descending in 15 miles. I'm going to pre-select 12,000 feet, and we can do the descent checklist. So, descent checklist, selected altitude is set, pressurization is set, landing data is prepared, the descent checklist to transition is completed. And we have reached 36 miles, so let's come here, vertical speed, down, couple of clicks, let the airplane drop the nose, and then let's slowly reduce the power. We are 3 miles from the VOR. I'm going to switch myself to heading mode. I'm going to overfly the VOR, and then let 5 miles away from the VOR, and then turn right, heading 080 to join the downwind for the runway until crossing the radial of 037 from Falcon, which is already on the nav2. We just flew by 5 miles from the VOR, so let's go heading 080. We're now joining the downwind. Okay, we have now crossed the radial. I'm going to decrease the vertical speed so we can lose some speed. We are 1000 to go. And let's turn right. Heading 210. Setting a heading of 220 for an easier interception. We are 26 miles away. I could actually arm the localizer and let the airplane do its job. We're descending to almost 200 knots. Altitude selection. There comes the localizer needle. And remember, our approach speed is going to be 134. We have the white arrow there. There comes the glide slope. And it captured. Very good. Now let's increase the power. Remember, we don't have an auto throttle, so we have to do it all by ourselves. And I would love actually to hand fly a little bit, so why don't we do that? Let's go autopilot off. My controls. We want to deploy flaps 30 as well. That's going to be our landing flaps. Speed is checked. Flaps 30. And there we go. Now we just have to maintain ourselves on the path. Good on the localizer, good on the glide path. Approaching our VAP speed. Landing checklist. Before landing final. Fuel heaters off. Boost pumps are on. Crossfeed valves are closed. Engines flight start. And this is difficult, it's a long checklist. No smoking sign is on. Gear is down. We got 3 greens. A bit low correcting. Yeah, this is why you have 2 pilots
1000
on the cockpit. Checked. Flaps down, speed brakes armed, autopilot off. Landing checklist is complete. So, now just about hand flying. Not too bad, speed is stable. We passed 1000. We were good.
Terrain.
Checked.
400
Terrain.
This was unexpected.
300 minimum
Terrain.
Continue.
100 50 40 30 20 10
And I overflared it a bit, but that's fine. That's a touchdown. Apply reverses. And we need to remember to apply manual braking. Parking complete. Parking brake is set. The lights are off. So right now, how we're going to do it? Very simple. We're going to shut down 2 of the engines, specifically engine number 4 and number 3. And we're going to ask X-Plane ground services. Now we can come to to the flight engineer's panel. Connect ground power. Connect ground air connection. Switch the other 2 engines off. Seatbelt sign can come to off. Beacon light can come to off. There goes the jetway. And ourselves switching off the boost pumps and the valves. This is parking checklist. Running turn-off lights are off. Brakes. We need to set this to the brake. It is set. We can switch off the engine pumps. Parked ground services are called. External power is on. Stational power is on external power. Start levers are cut off. Beacon lights off. Seatbelt sign off. Number 1 and 2 auxiliary hydraulic pumps, we're going to leave them on. Galley power will keep them on. Electrical panels checked. Fuel pumps and valves off. Bleed air switches can go off, actually. That's correct. And continuing the checklist, radio altimeter, I think it's just standby. You can switch this off right here. Cockpit lights are fine, radar off already. Transponder is standby. Flight recorder off. And now the rest is accomplishing only if all passengers have the plane. So the parking checklist is complete. Well guys, that's been it. I hope you enjoyed this slightly different video about the Boeing 720. I'm very sorry for the black smoke from the engines. I don't know from where that came, because it was fine last time I tested this airplane. I'll probably advise the developer to try to get this fixed. I guess this is something on this newer X-Plane 12 beta. We're definitely going to take this airplane on a live stream, and if you have any good route that you could suggest to where we could take it, please leave down a comment, and definitely hit a like for this old vintage jet flying. This is very fun, and I advise you very much to try this by yourself. But first, if you are new to VORs, learn how to fly with them on a Cessna like a 172, because it's a slow airplane and it will be a lot easier for you to manage all the change of courses, radials, speed and altitude. Then try something like the Freeware C90B that just came out 2 days ago, and it is fantastic. Now I'm saying 2 days ago, it's from the day that I'm recording, so it will be something like a week ago once I post this video. And finally, once you'll be fine with the C90B and feeling comfortable by doing normal flights, hop in to this 720. It's a fantastic plane, very well modeled, great Fmod. Still has work to do, but still, it's all freeware. The textures are great, the cockpit is great, it hand flies beautifully and is a joy to look at. So yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm gonna say goodbye to you as we watch this 720 depart on its next leg to Chicago. See you next week, guys. Stay great. Bye bye.